Hello, everybody. Today is August 6th, and I'm Lucifer
Hello, I'm Lucifer. Nice to meet
is
you.
visiting Phoenix house, and so here she is, and we were talking about war. Um, what does it take to end the war? What do you think?
Well, the concept that we're speaking about is Diana was speaking about ending the war and bringing peace. And on that, I wanted to broaden the idea that we cannot have peace in the material world if we do not have it in the spiritual world. And that being said, what does that mean? That means that in each person, there's a spirit conflict with ourselves, on whether that's our judgment on ourselves or whether it's a religious belief that keeps us occupied within our mind and unable to connect to the spiritual ancestor side that we have within our DNA. So that being said, war in Russia, Palestine, ICE in America, all of this is a conflict with in each person not being able to use their own voice because they for so long have stood by and stayed silent. And when you stay silent, what that does is it causes an interior conflict with yourself. And so you cannot project peace out into the world when you do not have peace with yourself. And this starts a lot with your subconscious. And this is something that we call, the transcendent of our father's pasthood into our own lives, right? As you would say, your father's sins. So, if our fathers and our parents and our siblings and relatives across the board can't take accountability for what they have stood by and let happen, then the next generation is going to have to take not just their own accountability on, but that of their ancestors. And most people are not prepared spiritually to enter that battle. Because once you do go inside, the conflict of your own spiritual side versus your flesh, meaning everything that's in your DNA that's coming up against what you're fighting for in the spiritual world. So if you know that even though, yes, pain happened, it wasn't so much of a person behind it, but something spiritual behind it, you as a person can evolve into a place where you can make the judgment not based off your emotions, but off the spiritual advantages of taking, aka the higher road. But not in every situation is what the higher road is not what we deem it to be. So staying silent in a conflict because it has nothing to do with you is not appropriate, because the next day it will be you. But in order for us to process this as a whole, we have to look at ourselves. We can say that we're doing fine and we're good. That doesn't mean anything in the spiritual realm. The only vice of purpose that we really have and spiritual weapon is our voice. But in order to use your voice correctly, you have to dilute all the negative energy within your host, meaning your flesh, because whatever energy you perceive and hear will come down to your heart, and that's what you project out. So, peace is an interior concept, not an outer concept. But in order to project peace outwardly, you have to do the work inwardly to understand what real peace is. Peace is not hippy-dippy just standing by and hoping everybody loves each other, because you don't understand what love is. There's a whole description in many religious versions of it, yes. But to actually embody patience, kindness, transparency, truth, honesty, all these things are a lot more bold than one conceives. We make it lighthearted, but if you go outside of America, for instance, the way you conceptualize love is much different in Russia or Ukraine or Palestine. Because, for instance, a mother is not going to let you sit there and delude your life away because you have a dream that makes no sense in the country you're in. She's going to hone you and make sure that you can handle the reality that you're going to walk into once you're an adult. But what we're doing to ourselves personally is we look the other way and think it's okay because it's not that bad, until that thing that's not that bad is now causing terror throughout every universe. And this is the energy that we have to honestly acknowledge that we're hosting. When we think of negative or positive, those have to, in human body, consistently be there. The type of negative energy that God put in us versus the one that we are embodying through our human kindness is not of God. And when you are hosting that energy, you fall out of God's consciousness. And what I mean by that is you are unaware of what the real peace and truth and love look like. Because now you're in a state of material possession instead of embodying spiritual awareness. Because we want everyone to think that because you're kind, that means you're good. I have met many people that have a kindness about them, but it's a manipulative tactic. So understanding that peace can be manipulated, we have to understand what the truth is behind the narrative of people pushing peace. Because most peace that we see today is not about peace or love or understanding. It's about control. To get one section over here and the other over here to split and divide. I mean, it's the basic concept of reality that we've been living in since the beginning of time, is that everything is dividing itself, when the only way to is to come together as one conscious state. But in order to do that, we have to know we ourselves individually are doing wrong. And the first step in that process is literally just to come back and admit that sometimes you're not perfect and sometimes you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Because when you allow yourself to do that, you allow everybody else to. Because this is the first time for us being here and the last time. You only get one time at this life. And to impede that you know everything when you've never been here before, and that you have a right over somebody else or over land, is quite literally idiocy. Because you cannot conceptualize the world around you that's been here for quite a long time and then think that your materialistic understanding of emotions is going to rule everyone else. We all have our cultures, we have our ideas, and if we listen to each other and stop yelling at each other and take in silence in a way that we can receive that our world is not perfect, it's never been perfect, but that's what makes us incredibly special, that we can take something ugly and falling apart and at one point in time bring it back together. But we cannot keep pretending that the concept of peace and love is passive aggressive. It's not. It's strong, it's loyal, and it's loud. But if we continue to be silent in America, Ukraine, Russia, Palestine, and all the other countries, Congo, Australia has its things going on. If we don't speak about the reality that we are being controlled and manipulated, by beings that are not human, and we acknowledge that we have to talk about this as humankind, because otherwise we will go to a place that is much darker than anybody is currently prepared for, and it's coming much quicker than anybody can conceive. Because while we're watching media and movies and people singing, and as much fun as that is, we're being deluded by ourselves. We aren't children anymore, we're adults, and it's up to us to be the carriers. It's not our parents' jobs anymore. Our parents are dying. And then we have relatives going left and right from diseases being pushed out by our own governments. And then people losing their mind in mental institutions, in schools, and so on, because the mental disorders in this country are, and everywhere else, are off the radar. When did we become this humankind where all we have is mental disorders and diseases? It's not natural. And there's an agenda behind all of this. But we have to take accountability that we have the voices and we aren't saying anything. And we aren't doing anything. If that means we all have to start protesting on a whole nother level, or stop buying certain foods or going out, then we should be doing that. Because sooner or later we won't be able to do that. Because we didn't wake up in time. We're all awake. I know way too many of us that are awake, but we're not doing anything because we don't know where to start. You just start.
Good. Tell us, how can a person start today? Right
by
now.
going inside.
Okay.
By
So maybe
speaking the truth.
taking time to go inside and just listen, to be in silence.
Yes, exactly. Because if you don't start here, when the chaos erupts and everyone's losing their mind,
Yeah.
you have to be able to be still, to
Yeah.
let the universe, God Himself,
Absolutely.
lead you.
Yeah.
Because you can't do it on your own. We, as a whole, need to get together and realize we cannot do this by ourselves. Each
Yeah.
country, we can't fight what's really in control by ourselves, because that's what they want. They
Yeah.
want us to think it's us, that it's some big men with money in the government. It's not. They are all controlled. They are brainwashed, and they have been for the last 70 years. All the stuff we're seeing right now, currently, has been part of a big, big plan since 1854. Once the indigenous people of this land surrendered, that is when America died. Because America is a conceptual thing for people that are controlling us all over the world to move all the old world into one melting pot, then destroy the old world, Europe, Russia, Ukraine, all that over there, Asia, Africa. If they can destroy that by pulling all the resources, and they put everybody else in America and then South America, and eventually they will desecrate everywhere else except America and Canada and maybe Alaska. But eventually we will end up like the Matrix. We will not have our own minds anymore. We will not be connected to God. We will be connected to a database. So for us to maintain the resource of human life on this planet in this time, we have to speak truth, but to do that, you have to do that with yourself. You're no good to anybody if you're unhinged and unable to even cope with your own emotions when you run out of toilet paper. If you think running out of toilet paper was bad in 2020, imagine what it's like when we have no water, when we can't turn our electricity on because everything got shut off by some country impeding on our data system and hacking it. It's easy. I've seen things hacked in college that I was like, if that can be hacked, how easy is it for everything else to be hacked? Yeah. So we have to become aware that this material thing that we call peace isn't real. It starts here, because that's the only thing that can control here. So we have to be able to look inward in order to project it outward.
Thank you. Well said. Beautiful. Thank you, Lucifer. Thank you for your wisdom.
No problem.
And we're at Women's Temple at Phoenix House today. Divine feminine channeling, peace.
And truth.
And truth. Peace and truth.
They're like a pie, they go together.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, love.